All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for being here today. On behalf of the Ankeny Chamber of Commerce and the Ankeny Area Chamber of Public Affairs Committee, we'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's event for a debate and forum on Senate District 19. Joining us tonight are Senator Jack Whitver and Amber Gustafson. Let's give them a round of applause. My name is Joe Murphy. I'm with the Greater Des Moines Partnership. I'll be here monitoring the discussion tonight, and thanks again in advance for your questions. I'm going to go over a little bit of the ground rules first, and then we'll jump right into opening statements. First of all, the format will be as follows. We'll do opening remarks by each candidate for 3 minutes, followed by questions from the Chamber membership that have been previously submitted by the Chamber, and we'll have 4 of those questions. Following those questions, we'll open it up to the audience, and as you've walked in, you've been handed a note card. Hopefully there will be some being passed around. Feel free to write those questions down, and we'll have volunteers collect those, collate those, and whittle them down to make sure that we don't have duplicative questions. They'll then come to me, and I'll read the question so you don't have to get up and ask the question yourself. We'll have a timer right here in the front row. Thank you for that. And we'll get started. But one last thing before we get started, I do want to take a moment just to remind everybody that this is an important event, important debate in today's climate. The Greater Des Moines Partnership and the Ankeny Area Chamber takes part in the Show Some Respect campaign, emphasizing civility and good manners and overall politeness in the political atmosphere. So thanks in advance for your cooperation with that. We held a random drawing at the beginning. Amber was the winner, so she will go first to discuss the questions. But first we'll do the intro. So Amber, and we're going to awkwardly pass the mic back and forth, so sorry.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you to the Ankeny Chamber for hosting this forum. It's been a lot of fun to be a chamber member for the last year and a half, and I'm so appreciative for all that you do for our community. I'm Amber Gustafson. I'm running for Iowa Senate District 19, and I'm running because I want my kids to grow up here. I want them to go to school here, and I want them to stay here. I want them to raise their families here. I want them to build businesses and be workers in our community. I want them to help build the economy of the future. I grew up on a farm in southern Iowa. My family lost everything in the farm crisis. In one day, we lost our home, we lost our business, we lost everything. Not long after that, we also lost my dad due to health problems. And my mom did the one thing she knew she could do to keep our family afloat. She took me by the hand and took me down to the county offices and signed me up for every single social program we could qualify for, because it was do or die for us. I worked really hard throughout high school, including raising my own hogs and cattle, to pay for college myself. And through programs like Pell Grants, Stafford Loans, and Iowa State's Christina Hickson Opportunity Award, I was able to be the first person in my first person in my family to enroll in and attend a 4-year university. But I'm here today because the Iowa Legislature has lost its way. Once upon a time, our state was known for pragmatism and bipartisanship. We prided ourselves on the quality and accessibility of our public education. And the truth is, the 21st century challenges that we face as a state are too big and too crucial for us to continue down a path of underfunding and undervaluing education. And all the programs that help people like me rise out of poverty, have fair wages, and keep their kids safe. My husband and I make our living as small business owners here in Ankeny, and we've lived here for over 15 years. I've served on the board of Bright Beginnings Preschool, served as the president of the Prairie Trail PTO. I've been active in the farm-to-table food movement through the Iowa Food Cooperative, and served as the volunteer state chapter leader for Moms Demand Action, a gun safety organization working on bipartisan solutions to gun violence. I'm happy to be here tonight and excited to talk with members of the Ankeny Chamber as well as the Ankeny community about ways that we can work together to build a 21st century Iowa that works for everyone. Thank you.
Well, good evening, and thank you all for coming out to this forum tonight. I appreciate the Chamber hosting this event as they host so many other events throughout Ankeny and all that they do for our community here. I look forward to sharing my vision for Senate District 19 and for the future of Iowa with you tonight. My name is Jack Whitver. I was raised in Grinnell. I attended Iowa State University, and like so many other couples, after we got married, my wife and I, Rachel, settled here in Ankeny because we thought this would be the best place in the world to raise our family. And we were right. This is a fantastic town. We now have 3 kids, Ella, who is 7, Elin, who is 5, and Andrew, who is 4. I'm a small business owner. I started my first small business the day I graduated college, and I spent the last 15 years building those small businesses. I'm honored to represent Senate District 19 in the Iowa Senate. I ran for office because I wanted to help make Iowa the #1 state in the entire country. I'm proud that our work over the last few years has taken us to the #1 overall ranking by the U.S. News & World Report state ranking. Some of that is due to the policies that we put forward at the state, but so much more of it is due to the quality of people that we have here in Iowa. We're never going to have mountains or beaches like so many other states, but what we do have is great people who care about this state greatly, and that's why we're the #1 state in the country. People all around the country are starting to recognize Iowa for what a great thing we have going on here. You cannot open a top 10 list without seeing Iowa somewhere on that list, whether it's the best place to settle after college, best place to start a business, or the #1 state for the middle class. Iowa is on that list somewhere. At the state level, I'm very proud of the policies that we have put in place over the last few years. Over the last 2 years, we've made changes that have caused unemployment to go down and wages to go up. Iowans are working, and Iowa is working. We've cut taxes for small families, or for businesses and our families. We've cut every single person's individual income tax rate in the state of Iowa. We've reduced regulations so that it still protects Iowans, but it doesn't crush small business. We've added over $700 million to the K-12 education system since I've been in the legislature. We've worked to find solutions for people that are cut out of the healthcare system. We've worked to improve our mental health system. We've worked to expand job training and get technical skills for those that are graduating college or want to go back and improve their career. We've worked to improve water quality in the state of Iowa. Iowa's a great state. I go to work every single day trying to find ways to make it better. I want to thank you for being here, and I look forward to our conversation tonight.
Thank you, candidates. We'll now enter into the chamber questions, the 4 chamber questions. So be thinking about your audience questions. And just in the order of interest of time, if we could please hold our applause until the end of the discussion in an hour, that would be great. So the first question, since Amber led things off in the welcome, we'll go to Jack to start off. The first question from the chamber is, what would you do to influence the Iowa Legislature to help Iowa small businesses?
Well, thanks for that question. We have made a tremendous amount of progress with small businesses. I mentioned our #1 overall state ranking. One thing that we have, when you look at the rankings in that report, one thing that we were not very good at was our business environment. We were 47th in the country in business environment. When we set out to do tax reform last year at the state level, there's many different aspects of the tax code, but one of the priorities I had was to work on individual income tax. Because that not only helps every single person in the state of Iowa who pays an income tax, it also affects most of our small businesses. Most of our businesses don't pay the corporate rate. They pay the small business individual income tax rate. And so that's where I wanted to put our focus on our tax bill last year. I'm proud that the tax bill that we passed lowered taxes, it made our code more predictable, it made it flatter and fair, and it's going to have a tremendous impact on our small businesses. We also did it in a very fiscally responsible way. We phased it in over several years. Since that has passed, our revenues in the state of Iowa have actually increased. And so we have made a tremendous amount of progress. We need to continue to work on regulation, like I said in the opening, that will still protect Iowans, but not crush small businesses that are trying to keep up with large corporations. And so there's a lot of work left to do. The other thing that I would point out, and I don't know, this may be another question because it's so important, is our skilled workforce. That is the #1 biggest challenge facing Iowa today. And you can't talk to any organization or any business, whether it's a small business, a large business, or even, I was door knocking the other day and talked to someone from Iowa State. They're having a hard time finding people to work. We have more job openings than we have people to fill them in Iowa. And so we're continuing to work on that skilled workforce is vital to the future of Iowa. If we can get more people with more skills taking those jobs, the tax revenues go up, our state does better, our economy grows, and it solves a lot of problems here in the state of Iowa.
Great, thanks. Amber, the question again is influencing the legislature to help small businesses.
Thank you so much. So, like I mentioned before, my husband and I are small business owners, and the truth is there are a lot of hurdles in Iowa for building a small business, but it's also a really great state for building a small business. The tax plan that was put forward in the last legislative session really was very unfortunate for Iowans, and especially for Iowa business owners. First of all, one of the biggest problems with it is that the tax cuts don't even kick in for another 3 years. So when I'm out knocking doors, and I've knocked over 6,500 doors in this district, people aren't really feeling the effects of it, especially because while we have tax cuts that we've been promised in the future, right now, our child care costs are increasing, our utility bills are increasing, our health insurance bills are increasing. So pipe dreams for the future really aren't helping us meet our budget issues today. I want to create a tax structure that actually helps Iowa businesses instead of out-of-state corporations. Jack talked about small businesses getting crushed by big out-of-state businesses. Why do we think that is? Because the debt is stacked against them. We can do better.
Thank you. Moving into the second question relating to the budget, and Amber, we'll start with you. What are your budget principles and your thoughts on the current state of Iowa budget?
When I think about a budget, I think of a really great piece of advice that my pastor gave me. And that is if you want to know what your values are, look at your checkbook. If we look at the state checkbook, we can see that we're putting the value of tax breaks for big corporations ahead of our responsibilities to the children, older adults, and people with disabilities in this state. We have a moral obligation as Iowans to make sure that every single child in this state has access to high-quality, cost-effective education. We have a moral obligation to make sure that absolutely every single person who is a Medicaid recipient receives the benefits that they're due and that their provider is paid in a timely fashion. You know, when my husband and I sit down to do our bills, you always have that moment where your paycheck hits the checking account and it looks like you're a millionaire, and then you start deducting all of your mortgage and your electricity bill and everything else. But for that moment, it looks like you have a budget surplus. And that's really where we're at right now in Iowa. Sure, we have a budget surplus because we failed to pay our bills. So we need to make sure that the people that are in the legislature understand their moral obligation to the people of this state, and that they use their tax dollars to actually benefit people rather than giving costly tax giveaways.
Well, when I think about the state budget, the number one principle is it should be balanced and it should be fiscally responsible. When we took the Senate majority as Republicans after the 2016 election, we came into office in the middle of a budget year of a budget that was negotiated by the previous majority. We had a $140 million shortfall that we had to address right away, the day that we came into the majority. We had to make tough decisions to balance that budget, and we did so. And when you talk about looking at your budget to see your priorities, the priorities that we set, that we didn't touch a single dollar from, was K-12 education and our Medicaid program. We didn't cut a single dollar from those, even though we had to. They make up about 60% of our budget, and we had to make those tough budget adjustments in the middle of the year. We didn't take $1 from K-12 education or one from Medicaid. So if you want to look at the priorities, you look at what we actually did. Our budget is fiscally sound right now. Our cash reserves are full, with over $700 million in our cash reserve account, and we have a $127 million surplus. The Revenue Estimating Commission, which is the group that estimates our budget for the next year, which frankly they've been off several years in a row, and that's why we have really tried to be diligent about how much we spend so that we don't overpromise and underdeliver. They came back and they estimate that when we get back in the session next January, we're going to have almost $300 million of new money available to spend. It's because we've made tough choices, we've kept our priorities, And now our budget is in a strong position going forward, so we can continue to focus on things like K-12 education and Medicaid and public safety. And so that's what our priority has been. But it is very, very important that when we set a budget, that we can keep those promises. And so that's why this last year, even though there's a 99% spending limitation in Iowa where you can spend up to 99%, plus you can spend all the surplus money if you want under our current state law, we didn't do that. We said we're going to spend a little over 98% so that if that number comes in lower, we're not going to be scrambling mid-year. So it was rough after we took the majority to get that budget balanced, but now it is balanced and we're in a very, very strong position. And that's why we are named the third best managed state in the entire country. You know, you listen to my opponent and other people around the state, they talk about how bad Iowa is. We're the third best managed state in the country. We're just ranked number 1 overall. Things are going good and we're going to continue to make it go good.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Senator Whitver, that deals with political identity. What position do you currently hold that is not consistent with the party you represent, and will you continue to stand your ground even if your party suggests you don't?
Well, I mean, both parties have a platform. I think there's probably things in both of our platforms that we don't agree with. One thing, you know, I think you get into a situation where people say, well, Republicans aren't for this or Democrats aren't for that. And that's part of the reason that we have become so polarized in Iowa. I want to talk about something that is important to me, something I've worked on the last few years, and something that we're going to continue to work on. And that is our mental health system here in the state of Iowa. In 2017, I had a group of advocates come into my office towards the end of session saying, we need help. I was Senate President at the time, and they said, we need help. We need to make sure that we have the funds necessary to get through the next year, and we need help with our levies. And in the last couple of weeks of session, we pushed that through and got that help we needed, including here in Polk County, with a lot of help from Broadlawns to fix that mental health funding problem. Part of that, we also said, we need to put together a study group to come back with the best ideas so that we can have the best mental health system we can possibly have. And so we put together the Complex Needs Work Group, which was a group of 20 or 30 people from all kinds of different areas. They come from hospitals, they're mental health providers, they're law enforcement, they come from the judicial system. Everybody that interacts in the mental health system came together. And often you get these types of groups and they do their work and then the legislature ignores it. Not this time. They came to us and said, this is what we need if we want the best mental health system. We took those ideas and with very few, if any, changes to their ideas, we passed that on a unanimous, bipartisan basis. I became majority leader halfway through last session. And I remember like it was yesterday. It was Thursday. I was driving. It was actually over a short weekend where I had with my family when I became majority leader. I called my staff and I said, the very first bill I want on the list when I come back Monday as majority leader is the mental health redesign, so we can continue to move that forward. And we passed that, and to see hundreds of advocates standing in the rotunda, people from both parties there, all providers there, was really a really special moment. And the same day the governor signed that mental health bill, she also signed an executive order that's saying, it's great what we've done with the adult mental health system, we need to do the same with our children's mental health system. It's one kid committing suicide in our high schools is too many, and we've had far more than that. And our children's mental health system needs to get better. And so she signed that executive order saying we need to improve our children's mental health system. We expect them to come back with the same kind of recommendation that they did on the adults, and we're going to implement that as well. So that's a very important issue to me.
One issue that I do not agree with a majority of my party on is the issue of an assault weapons ban. That's not a priority for me. I'm a gun owner, and as I mentioned, former chapter leader for Moms Demand Action, and there are many people in my party that would push for an assault weapons ban, and that's not something that I would consider. So I just want to put that out there. But then I'd like to also go back and address what Senator Whitver had to say about the mental health bill that was passed in the last session. When you pass a bill and you put zero funding behind it, it's really mostly just a non-binding resolution. And so, unfortunately, we have a lot of people in this state who still very desperately need access to mental health care, particularly in our rural areas, who just simply do not have access to it. Not to mention the fact that we've had 4 study groups now on the issue of children's mental health, and quite a long period in the state legislature that the Republican Party has been in charge, and still no action on this. I talk to teachers every day who say one of the one of the biggest issues that they have to deal with is the mental health issues of the students in their classrooms before they can even begin to crack open a book and teach reading or math. So we can continue to kick the can down the road on the issue of mental health, but again, going back to the issue of the moral obligation, we cannot just continue to turn away from people in the state who are in need.
Thank you. We are moving into our fourth and final chamber questions, so we have some good questions coming in from the audience, so appreciate that. It was just reported that ACT scores for Iowa high school students have dropped again. How does Iowa regain #1 status for our students in taking these tests? We'll start with Amber.
One of the best things that we can do to make sure that our kids are doing well is to make sure that our teachers are doing well. In the last two legislative sessions, the Republicans have severely damaged collective bargaining for public employees and teachers in this state, and it breaks my heart. I remember a moment going into a legislative forum over at the Netherlands Center, and I was there to speak out on the issue of gun safety, but the room was completely filled with my own children's teachers with tears in their eyes, worried about their financial future. And I thought, how can these wonderful people focus on teaching my kids when they're worried about whether they're going to be able to make their own budget balance at home? And that was one of the things that motivated me to get in this race in the first place. And so if we want to see our children do well, we need to make sure that teachers are doing well. And we need to take every action we can to restore collective bargaining for all teachers and public employees.
Well, our record on education in the last few years is this. We've had the 4th highest increase in funding in the entire country for K through 12 education. We have the 8th highest salaries for teachers when you adjust for inflation in the entire country. We've added $700 million to our K through 12 education system since I've been in the legislature. We're funding it, and we need to continue to fund that. One thing that I've been working on, and we do a great job of, the best thing we do in the state of Iowa, I think, with education, is our dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment that we have with our high school kids that are taking community college credit. We do a great job of that in Ankeny, so that kids are graduating Ankeny High School with 5 or 10 or 15 or even 20 credits. We need to continue to do that so our kids are prepared for college. They have maybe a semester of college done that they don't have to pay for, maybe an entire year of college they have done. One of the things that I identified when you go back to the skilled workforce that we talked about earlier, I was meeting with the community college presidents about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And one thing they identified is there's about 40% of our high school students that do not take those concurrent enrollment classes. And their theory is if we can get more of those kids starting the community college process. Some of those kids are going to go 4-year school, some are going to go to community college anyway, even though they're not starting the dual enrollment, but some of those are just trying to get to the finish line of high school. If we can encourage more of those 40% to take those dual enrollment classes and show them, community college isn't that bad. You already have 5 credits, you already have 10 credits. You're getting closer to a degree, and if you invest 1 more year into yourself, you're going to change your life, and you're going to change your family's life. And so I think one of the keys to our future in education and for our workforce issue that we have in the state is that 40% right now that are not taking those dual enrollments. And we need to encourage those people to do so.
Thank you. That concludes the chamber questions that were submitted previously, and so now we'll get into questions from the audience. So thank you for taking the time to write these down. We do already have a few duplicates, so what we're trying to do is combine questions that cover the same topic. So if you don't hear your exact question, that's the reason we're trying to get as much in as we can. Last session, there was a lot of discussion on Iowa's water quality. A big bill was passed with respect to water quality in the entire state, not only in this region. What are your thoughts moving forward on water quality legislation, and is there more that needs to be done?
Well, thank you for that question. I'm proud of the work that we did on water quality. It is a good first step towards making sure that our water is clean, both our drinking water and our lakes and rivers. That water quality bill took a lot of effort. It took over 2 years to put that together and find agreement in the legislature. But when it passed, it was a bipartisan water quality plan that addressed both the point source, which is the water treatment plants, and the non-point, which is when you go back into the fields in their agriculture sector. We need to continue to work on it. There's nothing, you can't just pass one bill and all problems are solved, so we need to continue to work on that. But it was a big step to get a sustainable funding for our water quality. And we did that by, there is already a sales tax on water. It's been there for a long time. We didn't add a new tax. We just said if there's a sales tax on water, let's put that money towards water quality. And so that will be phased in over a couple of years, but now you'll have a sustainable funding stream for water quality. One issue that came up this last year that maybe this is the answer to the question before that dealt with how do you differ with someone in your party. There was a bill to try to change the Des Moines Waterworks, and that was a bill that was gaining a lot of steam. I worked very hard with our mayor, who is here tonight, and said there's a better way to do this. We can't just dismantle Des Moines Waterworks. We need to sit down and find a better way. And so I charged him, or asked him, begged with him to talk with all the other mayors, meet with the waterworks, and come up with a plan that actually includes Ankeny in the waterworks plan. Right now, we don't have any representation on the board of Des Moines Waterworks, and neither do a lot of the suburbs around here. So I wanted to try to get him to work with the waterworks so that we can remake that board so the suburbs that are drinking a lot of that water actually have a say when it comes to how that board is run, where new plants are being built, and he has taken a lead on that, and I appreciate his work on that. And so that's one area that in the Senate, we didn't want to bring that up because there's a better way to address that.
My husband and I live on 4 acres outside of Ankeny, and we have a well that was there when we moved. And unfortunately, that well had to be shut down by Des Moines Waterworks because the quality of the water made it virtually undrinkable. That's sad. Iowa is a place with great natural resources. We should be able to utilize them. I think that the water quality issue is similar to a lot of other issues, and that is that the Republican Party has had the reins of power for a good long time in the state of Iowa, and yet has really failed to take action that makes a difference on this issue. And we need new ideas, and we need new people that are willing to devise some solutions that actually work.
Very good. Moving into the second audience question. And this deals with minimum wage legislation. And Amber, we'll start with you. There has been talk recently about increasing the minimum wage. Polk County recently has taken some steps on their own. There was some legislation passed previously to provide consistency throughout all counties in the state, so that no county could be increased higher than another. What is your position on the minimum wage, and is this something that needs to be addressed this legislative session?
We haven't had an increase in the minimum wage in Iowa for more than 10 years. That's pretty unfortunate. And I think it's really a sad day in Iowa where we pass a law that prevents municipalities and counties from being able to set their own minimum wage. When that law was passed, there were more than 60,000 Iowans that lost wage increases that they had already received. That's not a way to help people in the middle class and in the lower class in this state. You know, 4 in 10 African American people in Iowa with children in their home is at the poverty line or below. We need to take some good, strong looks at what we can do to increase the quality of living and access to education and minimum wage for every Iowan.
Well, I like to focus on the market wage. And when we put in forth policies that help grow our economy, that help grow businesses, the market wage goes up. On 141, Highway 141 over near Grimes, they're building a new Quick Start. There's a big sign in front of it that says starting wage $12.45. The market wage is way more important because that's what people are actually making. You drive up and down North Ankeny Boulevard here, you will see $10, $11 on every window. We need to continue to work on the market wage, and that is increased dramatically. But then it goes to getting people the skills they need so they're not making $10 or $12, it's 15 or 20 or 25. And that's where we go back to this Future Ready Iowa and the skilled workforce. That's where we put our time, and it's having results here in the state of Iowa.
Thank you. Senator Whitver, we'll start with you on this next question. Getting back to the state budget, a lot of interest on the state budget. With respect to the state's increasing revenue as of late, what will be some of the priorities to spend that money, or maybe not spend that money, moving forward in this next legislative session for your caucus or for you personally?
Well, I've already laid out what our priorities have been when we had to make budget adjustments mid-year, and that was K through 12 education and Medicaid. Those will remain priorities that they have every year for a long time. They make up about 60% of our budget. I think we need to go and look at areas like our state troopers so that we have public safety taken care of. It's been a long time since they even had an academy to bring more troopers into their system. 2 years ago, we were able to do that. They had their second academy this year so that they can actually put new troopers on the road. And so public safety is a very important one. And then you go back and look at some of the adjustments you go back and look at some of the bills that we passed. When Amber talked about the mental health bill, we funded it exactly what it was supposed to be. The first year, we funded fully. We're going to come back and continue to continue to fund it. When you say that's a non-binding resolution, I would dare you to say that to the hundreds and hundreds of people that were there that had worked so hard on that bill, that they've been looking for that bill for years. That's not a non-binding resolution to those people. It was a very, very important issue, and we got it passed in a unanimous way, so we're very proud of that.
When we talk about budget priorities, I'd like to touch on two things that you mentioned, Senator Whitver, specifically K-12 funding and Medicaid. When it comes to the issue of K-12 funding, what was given was a 1% increase. That does not match the rate of inflation, and so it was an effective cut to this funding for our K-12 schools. Now, every time I'm out knocking doors in Ankeny, the one thing that I hear from parents that they are concerned about in this community is class size. Our class sizes continue to grow, and teachers are continually asked to do more with less. And so we need to make sure that we choose a school funding formula that keeps pace with the rate of inflation and that is no longer a political football. And when it comes to the issue of Medicaid, I will tell you right now, the thing I hear over and over again is that Medicaid is an unmitigated disaster in this state. The privatization scheme that was foisted upon this state by the Republican administration has been heartbreaking for families across this state, many of them whom I know well. And the only thing that the Republican legislature has done to even address the issue is to throw more money at the problem. Now, I've worked a lot of jobs in my lifetime, and I will tell you, I have never done a bad job and gotten a raise.
We'll have one final question before we move into closing statements. We've talked a lot about educational funding at the K through 12 level, but not a lot of discussion so far on community college, Regent University, or the tuition grant. Your thoughts on funding public higher education in the state of Iowa, and I believe we'll start with Amber. Is that where we're at?
Thank you, sorry.
The path out of poverty for me went through the doors of a school. And that's true for every single Iowa child that's in poverty today. The truth is that the challenges that we are facing in the 21st century are too great to leave any child in poverty. We need to make sure that every child has access to education and that it's a good quality education. And that the child in a rural district in Iowa is going to get the same value of education that a child is going to get in the suburbs of Ankeny or Des Moines. Higher education has been severely underfunded in this state. When I received the Christina Hickson Opportunity Award, it was a full tuition scholarship. Now it covers less than half. The award amount has stayed the same, and tuition costs have nearly doubled. We can't continue to underfund education and think that we're going to have the workforce that we need for the future. The bottom line is that for every dollar that we invest in preschool or in higher education, we get on average between $6 and $8 back into the economy. So when we underfund education, we underfund our future.
Well, the last couple of years, we have tried to focus on the community colleges. And when we had to make adjustments to the budget, we tried to do as little as possible there, and we came back the next year and filled that back up to where the cuts were refilled. The regents for years have been saying they need to raise their tuition. They come and they say, we need 5%, we need 7% for the next 5 years. And it's because they are trying to keep up with their peer groups. They're keeping up with UCLA or Michigan State or Penn State. They're trying to keep up their tuition with those. And so it's a constant battle with the regents of them wanting to raise tuition and us saying, we don't want tuition to go up. And for several years, we were in the middle of that battle, and we said, if we're going to give you more money, you have to freeze tuition. So at least 3 years that I've been down there, we have frozen tuition completely. When you talk about higher education, though, I think the most pressing issue is student debt. And tuition is certainly a part of that. But so is the cost of living, the cost of room and board. I've been a leader at the Capitol when it comes to trying to address student debt. I wrote a bill that we passed through the Senate. Unfortunately, it was too late in the session to get it enough traction in the House, but it's something I'll continue to work on. But it matched up several different things. One, we talked about dual enrollment with our community college credits. Many kids now can graduate with at least a semester, maybe even 2 semesters of their college already completed when they graduate Ankeny High School or Ankeny Centennial or North Polk. We need to find a way to take advantage of that year. If they get to the Regent University and the program that's laid out for them requires 4 years when you're trying to match up the classes to graduate, we don't get any benefit out of that year that they took in high school. We need to work with our regents to give those kids a 3-year path so that if they take a year in high school or maybe they take a summer class, they can actually graduate in 3 years. And they can save an entire year. And that's not just tuition, that is a room, board, cost of living, and it is their opportunity to go get a job sooner and make money. That's one part of it. The second thing we need to do, and Iowa already has a program like that called the Degree in 3. We need to continue to expand that to the others. If it's working there, we need to have it at the other 2. The second thing we need to do is work on financial literacy for our students. UNI has a fantastic program called Live Like a Student. Because they teach financial literacy to all their freshmen, they have reduced student debt by over $3,300 per student, 15%. If it's working for UNI, why the heck isn't Iowa State and Iowa doing it? So part of that bill is saying we're all going to do that. And the third part is just providing information to our students and their parents. Freshmen, sophomore, juniors in high school should have a list of all the possible degrees, all the jobs that are there, how much it's going to cost to get that degree, how much student debt they're going to have, what they're going to make when they're done, and what their job placement is. So you can sit down as a freshman or sophomore or junior in high school and say, if I go get a welding degree, I can make $60,000. If I want to go get a Russian history degree, the placement is 10% and I have $40,000 of debt. They can still do that, but we need to give them that option so that parents and students know the cost of higher education.
Great. Thank you, Senator. That basically takes care of all the questions, subjects that were submitted by the audience, and I know we're running a little bit ahead, but we will now move into, because we've exhausted all those questions or subjects, we'll move into the closing remarks. Candidates will have 3 minutes to close. Based on the selection previously, we'll start with Jack and then close out with Amber.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, for moderating tonight, and I want to thank you all for being here to hear our conversation about the future of Senate District 19 and the future of Iowa. I'm honored to serve as your state senator. I've enjoyed meeting so many of you over the last few years, and I've enjoyed our conversations about how to make Iowa a better place. In 8 years, I've never missed a vote. Over 2,500 votes on the Senate floor. I've never missed a single one because this is important. Growing up, I wasn't into politics. My family wasn't political. I never thought I would get into politics, evidenced by my exercise science degree that I got from Iowa State. But I got interested when I got out of college. And as I said in my opening, I ran for office to make Iowa the best state in the nation. And my motivation was very simple. I wanted to make sure that the Iowa that we leave to my kids, your grandkids, is better than the Iowa that was left for us. This is a stressful job, but there's nothing better than getting home from a long day, like I'm going to in about an hour and a half from now, and having my kids run up to me and are so excited to see you. And I like that because, one, we don't talk politics with them because they're too young. But second of all, they remind me why I do what I do. I've always tried to take a really long-term view to this job. I've always tried to look past the next election and look to the next generation. And over the last few years, we have worked to improve our job climate here in the state of Iowa. And it has worked. we have the second lowest unemployment rate in the entire country. We have worked to make our education world-class. Like I said, we have the highest graduation rate in the country. We've worked to make Iowa a better state for the middle class. It has worked. We were named the #1 state for the middle class. We've worked to be fiscally responsible and had to make tough decisions at times. But it has worked. We have a balanced budget. We have our cash reserves full. We have a $127 million surplus. Iowa is working. I'm proud of the progress we made, but I'm still optimistic and excited about where we can go as a state. I ran for office to make Iowa the #1 state in the country. I'm running for re-election to make sure that we stay there. Thank you very much for coming. I ask for your vote on November 6th.
Thank you once again to the Chamber and to Joe for being our moderator tonight. Thank you as well to the many folks from the SD19 community who came out tonight to ask so many thoughtful and important questions. The 2018 midterm election may well be the very most important one of our generation, one that will determine who gets to have a voice in the decisions that this state makes, one that will determine what our Iowa values really are. Do we want an economy that works for everyone, or just a select few? Will we address our moral obligation to care for those with disabilities, serious illness, our aging population? Will we offer a ladder to kids in poverty like me, or will we dig the hole deeper for them? Because the truth is, the Iowa of the 21st century needs everyone. We need that kid in poverty. We need her to rise up, get her education, become a teacher, a CPA, a nurse, maybe even a state senator. We need to ensure that disabled people are taken care of so that their loved ones can stop worrying about their next denial or unpaid bill and start giving their whole hearts to their jobs. We need a tax system that is fair, that benefits Iowa's small businesses and our own middle class, rather than billionaire companies that move in from out of state and contribute little to the actual economy. We are fortunate in our district because we have a lot of folks that are doing really well. But we also have a lot of friends and neighbors who are living paycheck to paycheck. And many of us are just one car breakdown, one serious illness, or one job layoff from financial catastrophe. A lot of people are like my parents, good, honest, hardworking people who got dealt a bad hand. And the truth is, any one of us could find ourselves in that same situation with just one phone call. I know the path out of poverty, and it leads right through the doors of our public schools, from pre-kindergarten to our regent universities. And I know for a fact that if we want to create real, lasting, stable, growing economy that will adapt to the challenges of the 21st century, we will double down on investing in students and teachers. I'm ready to work with my neighbors and my friends to build a strong, safe SD19, safe schools, healthy communities that work for everyone. And I humbly ask for your vote on or before November 6th.
Responses to the questions, and thanks to the participants that came out tonight. Just want to say thanks to the both of you for taking the time out of your day to join us today. It's not easy to do what you do, to take questions and to vote for a campaign, so thanks for doing that. It's public service and we need more of it around these parts. And I just want to take a moment and remind everybody to vote on Tuesday, November 6th. We'll take a short break and come back here by 7:15 to kick off the House debate. So thank you, everybody.